Yesterday, we were saying farewell to the past, and today we continue to embrace the future. Hello everyone, and welcome back to oNiD's first season on the Mon Ultimate. This is round 5 of the SimHound LMU World Championship, and joining me as always to direct us through this season is the wonderful Sam Grant. How are you, Sam?
I'm well, thank you. Really looking forward to this week's race. Imola, I love Imola. It's a fantastic track, and I'm looking forward to tonight's racing.
Very iconic track, a lot of history to it, and we are a couple of minutes into qualifying already, starting to see our first flying lap from Cadillac going through the first chicane. Jack Lancaster here taking us on our first flying lap. And well, Sam, since you enjoy the circuit so much, how about you take us a little guide around Imola?
Yeah, I'll try. I was afraid you were going to say that, to be honest. But we see Jack Lancaster now going through the Tosser hairpin up the hill towards, I always forget his name. It's Piratella, according to this track map. Excellent. And I suspect we're actually in a completely different place. No, there it is, the top of the hill, Piratella. Tricky corner to get right, especially when you've got GT3s all around you. Down the hill now towards Aqua Minerale. Another tricky complex. Nail the entry. Let the car flow through the second mark. Get under power as soon as you can up the hill towards the tricky chicane. Not as tricky as the ACC chicane, I think, with the curves being slightly different. But onto the brakes heavily. Flick it in and make mincemeat of those apexes now towards a little bit of a kick before the downhill braking. That is the second last corner at Rivazza. There's the kink. Onto the brakes as soon as you can in a straight line. Turn it in, ghosting nicely at the middle there. Onto the power yet again for a crucial exit on the final corner for the long straight. That's critical for setting up your lap and defending into turn 1 if you've got cars around you. But Jack Lancaster obviously setting some purple and green sectors there on his lap there. Cubs up to second in the hypercar class so far.
Yeah, it goes P2, currently 6 tenths off of Said and Tut, who has set the pace so far, but we're still very early days in the session. Here is Said and Tut now on their second flying lap, just coming out of the Tosa hairpin up towards Piratella. Very fast corner. One of the things we should mention, if you are maybe used to the ACC version of this track, you'll notice just there aren't any yellow sausage curbs at first in our chicanes, but also there's a bit more gravel that comes up to the track edge of this track. So especially when we get into the race, it'll be very important to make sure you're not making mistakes, not running wide, as they will certainly be punished around this version of Imola.
Indeed, certainly. And I think it just adds to the thrill of this circuit. Obviously a high-speed circuit, very tricky to get some of these corners absolutely nailed, but also satisfying when you do, and it comes with that extra punishment, obviously with the gravel, as we see set and tut around the final corner and head up towards the start finish. Obviously, we see a glimpse of the pit entry. They will, I'd imagine, all the cars tonight have to take a trip through the pit lane, as they'll have to fuel save, I think, a ridiculous amount of laps. I think I've heard mixed figures from between 6 and 12 laps of fuel saving required, so that I don't think will be on the cards tonight, which will actually mix things up, fully enough, because we've been surprised, Scotty, so far when someone pulls it out, but I'd be super surprised tonight if someone decides to go for that.
Yeah, there are some longer straights, especially that pit straight with the start finish line. He's very long, does eat quite a bit of fuel, kind of like what we saw at Monza when we were running it without the chicane. Let's take a little look to the GT3. So Leon Vespera is currently sitting in provisional pole, on for a good lap time here, slightly slower in the final sector, bro, only by 7 thousandths, which I don't think they'll be too disappointed with. Currently sits half a second in front of Ollie Knowles at the moment, who's gone to P2. Johnny Ash running in P3 at the moment, Johnny has had a very good start to the season, but looks like those cars from third back still getting representative times in 1.8 seconds off the top time for Johnny at the moment.
Indeed, Johnny actually also briefly in the pits, obviously getting some new tyres and getting on his way again. 9 minutes to go in qualifying, so it's about halfway ish, close enough to get some new tyres and get on your way again. It's something you don't want to leave too late if you do plan to do it, but certainly worthwhile with these longer qualifying sessions. Let's have a look briefly. I saw Stevie Bain move up, I guess on a slower lap this time. We've got some movers. We've got Nick Manders sneaking into third there and pulling over again, possibly, I think, getting some new tyres. That pushes Elvin Blomqvist down to fourth and Dan Thompson down to fifth, who are about to cross the line as well. And doesn't improve on this lap. Elvin Blomqvist, though, does improve up to second. I thought we were watching Dan Thompson there, but apparently that was Elvin. Either way, he moves up to second.
Second, only 31 thousandths off of Lancaster, so it's definitely fight on for pole position in the hypercars. Watch into the Variante Villeneuve for Blomqvist, but now Paulo Grady starting another flying lap, currently sitting in P9 within the GT3 pack. We have a full 16 GT3 field, 15 cars in the hypercars as well, so very packed grid for Imola today. Ian into the Variante Villeneuve for Paulo Grady. Gotta make sure I carry good speed, get good traction on the exit, but not running wide into the gravel. Very important. Is up on their personal best through the first sector, but 1.1 seconds down on Vespere's time for provisional pole. So it looks like it to be quite a bit of a gap between Vespera, Knowles and the rest of the grid at the moment. Now we'll see if anyone can break into that top group. But now coming towards Aqua Minerale for Paulo Grady. Very tricky braking zone as you're having to turn through the first part while getting the car slowed down. Careful with that gravel, as we mentioned, right on the apex, on the exit curb, sorry. Ready to hinder your momentum if you run slightly wide. Only losing 3.5 tenths in the middle sector, so bit stronger there for the McLaren in the middle sector, and another personal best. Paul now being dropped down to P10, but only has a couple of corners to go here. The two Ravatas heavy braking into the left-hander here, gets a stop nice and well. Good usage of the outside curb, flicks it in to was effectively the final corner here through the second Ravata. Now it's just the run to line. We wait for the timing screen to update. The cross line here for Paul O'Grady, and they go P8 within the GT3 class.
Indeed, he does. We talked about, or you mentioned there, Paul being down in the first sector compared to the leader by some margin, as we see Ethel Basker actually move up to fourth in class, also in that McLaren. I think they've got the advantage here at Imola, where the sectors are kind of isolated, where, if you have a poor sector 1, it doesn't tend to affect sector 2 and likewise for sector 3, with the exception, obviously, of the final corner. So they do have that, and we do see a bit of disparity, I think, in the sector times as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, what the qualifying looks like. We also have Dave Wood sneaking up to fourth, pulling over. 5 minutes to go. Plenty of time for more tyres, because why not at this point? Let's see Also, if I can spot someone on a lap currently, Tyler Hammer, they're improved in the first sector. Doesn't improve in the middle there, but only 2/10 off as well from the best sector 2 time in that class. Heading down the hill now towards the second last corner. Onto the brakes, flick it in. Use as much curb as you dare without going onto the gravel. Again, flick it into the final corner. Again, use all the exit there. Carry as much speed as you can. Head up towards the line now through the kink. Shorten the track and will indeed cross the line and moves up one place to 6. But again, setting a personal best in sector 3.
Yeah, just about beating out Tomlinson in the other Chevy. Front of the hypercar field dominated by Chevys and Ferraris. Vianoda, though, will be trying to stick their Porsche up into that group. Coming across the line does not improve from P10, but will still have time for a few more laps, as will everyone else, of course, as they try and get themselves into a grid position for our 1 hour race coming up very soon.
Indeed, Johnny Ashley here improves in the first sector, but 4 seconds down from the leader, so clearly has some way to go for that sector there. But interestingly, in practice, we saw Johnny, I think, lead the way by some margin, so it'll be interesting here to see if he can get his lap down in the 4 minutes left of qualifying. He had the pace earlier on. It's just about getting it down on track now as he comes down the hill towards the Aqua Minerale, I'm going to say, or perhaps it is indeed. And then up the hill again towards the chicane.
Yeah, Johnny currently saying P6 in the GT3 field, about 1.4 seconds off the current provisional pole. Those times that you see on your screen are compared to the hypercars, so we are now compared to our leading GT3, still Vesparis at the top of the field, but a bit of a gap between them and Knowles. Johnny 1.5 tenths down in the first sector, 4.5 tenths down in that middle sector. So just seeing the difference between cars. The McLaren stronger in the middle sector compared to the BMW. The Mustang struggling a bit more, but out of the final corner, a little bit of a slide as Johnny tries to carry as much momentum to the start finish line here, waiting for the timing beep. There it is. Johnny cuts it, puts himself up to P3, 6.5 tenths off Vesparis.
Indeed, and on his way to improve that, I am sure. Also see Owen Blomqvist setting a purple sector 1 by 2 tenths. That's nullified by his slightly poorer middle sector now, obviously going through the final sector. Coming out of the chicane, they're heading down towards the hill. Not much you can do from here. Just make sure you've got a good exit coming out of the chicane and get on the brakes when you need to. Going into the second last corner, let's see what he can do. A bit of a squirrely movement onto the brakes, trying not to lock up, but trying not to obviously go too deep. Coming out the final corner now, looks relatively safe and tidy. Again, short on the track towards the finish line. And remains third, but does improve slightly on his time.
Only 4 thousandths off of Lancaster. Very close to breaking that all Cadillac front row. Goes for another lap. Oh, bit of a cut there on the second corner. Trying to really push for another lap. Sliding the car all the way through the Variante Tamburello into Variante Villeneuve now. And we'll get our first sector mark here, I believe, as they come into Tosa, 4 tenths down on the provisional pole time that Lancaster is actually just taken there by 24 thousandths. So we can't see Lancaster coming into T1, taking a lot of curb, but a little more settled for the red Cadillac compared to Blomqvist that we just seen a moment ago.
Indeed, Johnny Ashley being pushed down to 4th by Tricky to Task, by the way, but purple sector in the middle sector now as he runs towards the line. Did also improve in the first sector and only marginally off of the lead time there. Improves again in the final sector and puts it on pole by 3.5 tenths in the GT3 class.
Took him a little while, but Johnny has warmed up to this qualifying session and is putting the time in. We thought the Mustang was maybe a little weaker in that middle sector from his previous time, but he has proved us wrong with a fastest middle sector there on that lap. 3.5 tenths clear to Vesparis. Question is, will Vesparis be able to respond and find some time? Johnny might have just thrown away his final lap, dipping a couple of wheels into the gravel coming out of Variante Villeneuve. We now cut to Dave Wood fourth in hypercar class, not improving in the first sector, but less than a tenth and a half down on the provisional pole time. Personal best middle sector, but 3/10 slower than Lancaster's time at the top. Can Dave Wood close the gap to the top three? Comes across the line, does improve his time, but only very marginally, still half second off of the top time, but half second clear of Manders in P5. Tyler Hammer going on to start another lap just within the time limit. The checkered flag now out, so these will be the final laps, and they will count for Tyler Hammer through the first chicane. Looked neat and tidy there. We'll follow him through the second chicane. Variant de Villeneuve really holding tight through the first apex, trying to open up that second part, using all of the curb on the exit. Might have invalidated the lap from that. No sector time has come up for him through the first sector, so it might be invalidation here. But Tyler Hammer is continuing on, has been dropped to P7, now into Paratella. Looks clean, looks like he's got good rotation in the car. Now, how confident are they on the brakes? Into Aqua Minerale, sliding out wide, will struggle for traction with that slide through the end of the second sector. Is coming up 27.9 seconds down, so that might be a bit of a timing glitch. Looks like he might have backed off slightly. Didn't look like the greatest of exits out of the Variante Alta, as Blomqvist has gone provisional pole in the Ferrari, blocking out that what was a Cadillac front row. But we'll watch the Cadillac of Tyler Hammer now cross line. We don't think this lap is valid, but Tyler has been pushing on up to the line. Can they improve on that P7? It is valid. They put themselves up to P5, beating out Nick Manders by half a tenth.
Yeah, incredibly close in there, the top three. Less than a tenth covers Blomqvist, Lancaster and Tut. And yeah, Dave Wood on his own, 5/10 behind that, it seems. As indeed, that seems to be the end of qualifying. I think Daniel Lindblom is practicing a pit entry, which is obviously always worthwhile. And he will be our last driver on track, bar Charlie Morgan, who's decided to stop in that BMW.
Vespers did improve on their final lap, but was just nearly 2/10 shy of Johnny Ashley, but good effort, could be a good battle for the win. Can Johnny Ashley take a second win this season? That'd be quite interesting.
It would indeed. Let's get the starting order on the screen if it wants to work.
So then, our full starting order here, Imola, Elvin Blomqvist puts their Ferrari on pole position ahead of Jank Lancaster, who was holding a Cadillac front row with said intel before Blomqvist putting that final lap. Dave Wood will roll off P4 in front of Tyler Hammer and Nick Manders to make an all Cadillac and Ferrari top sixth. P7 will be Dan Tomlinson ahead of Stevie B in the first of our Porsches rolling from P8. The fifth roll in, Daniel Lindblom and Jacob Hine getting the Alpine up into the top 10. Just outside top 10, Lasse Villanueva will roll from P11 ahead of the first BMW of Charlie Morgan in P12. Dave Spiller in 13th ahead of Andy Hearn in on all row 7, all Porsche row 7 I should say. Max Farrell will roll 15th from row 8 ahead of Johnny Ashley, who will be our pole-sitting GT3 car. They beat out Leon Vesparas in the BMW, and Ollie Knowles will roll from P3, 18th overall in the Porsche. Trinket Tatas in the first Ferrari GT3 ahead of Athol Basker in the McLaren. Paulo Grady and Matthias Fusken will roll off row 11 overall. Then we have Mark Bryson and Simon Harris from P8 and P9 in GT3s ahead of Frank Vivek, who ranks out the top 10 in GT3, and Tom Watson just missing out with P11. Ben Myatt will go from P12 ahead of Jarrett Page. Darren Wilkes and Dean Smith for the penultimate roll, 14th and 15th, with Tim Bob 16th, and our final car in our 31 car field.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that excellent grid walkthrough. We just made it this week.
With time to spare. Quite interestingly there, I noticed 5 different manufacturers in the top 5 of GT3. So a good variety there at the front of GT3. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out over this race, especially when a bit of strategy comes into play. Not so much variety at the front of hypercars. The top 7 all made of Cadillacs and Ferraris, but which of the 2 manufacturers will get the better? Ferrari has led the way in qualifying, but a Cadillac rolls alongside them on the front row. We're rolling up to the lights now, waiting for the green flag. Drivers getting at as they're rolling on the 60 km/h speed limit, and we are green here at Imola for our 5th round of the SimHound LMU World Championship. And it's a great run from Tut on the 2nd row. They're going in the slipstream now as Alfa Blanco is defending their pole position wide for the Cadillacs, and it's a bit of chaos through the 2nd apex of the first chicane, and that's Tut off into the gravel, losing all the places as they drop down to the back of the field. Also, I've got Porsches really struggling. That's another Cadillac off on the left. That's Charlie Morgan in the BMW as well, and a Ferrari as well. It's been a disastrous start at the front of the hypercars.
Indeed, we see Nick Manders dropping all the way back. Daniel Lindblom amongst them as well. As you said, 7 Tut, Charlie Morgan. So many drivers caught up in that, and we'll have to get going and I'm sure repair their damage as we see now Tut trying to recover up the field. That leaves obviously Blomqvist leading the way. Dave Wood behind up into 2nd place. There's another yellow flag briefly as the drivers trying to get going and get past the GT3 field. That's all intermingled now. They were separated obviously previously, but now the hypercars have to get past them. And there's no blue flags yet as the Porsche that gets tagged amongst with Johnny Ashley. That was Stephen Bain getting caught out before Aqua Minerale there, and Johnny Ashley on his way. Stephen Bain facing the wrong direction.
Yep, it's 7 hypercars that find themselves in amongst the GT3 field. That's going to create chaos for all of them through the rest of this opening lap, as we've seen with Stevie Bain unfortunately getting caught up with Johnny. Johnny being able to carry on, but yeah, a lot of hypercars having issues, but Johnny Ashley has dropped from the lead of GT3. Visparis taking that and has already built up a bit of a gap. 1.8 seconds, sorry, not 1.8 seconds, 1.5 seconds in front. Reasonable gap, has broken that slipstream. Johnny Ash under a little bit of pressure from Trinket to Tass in 3rd.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of those drivers are going to be carrying that damage around. They don't want to stop too early. They've got fuel to consider, so possibly dragging that damage around for a number of laps before they can get into their pit window, and then obviously repair that damage if they choose to. It might not be so bad. Obviously, it's totally up to the driver. Jack Lancaster pushing on the door of Tyler Hammer there. 4th, as I think you mentioned. Half a second away is the gap, but those gaps ebb and flow so much. In this circuit, it's all about opportunity. You know, you can catch up with someone so quickly, but if there's no room to get past, you're just having to wait and wait for the driver in front to make a mistake, or for you to be able to set something up. As we see them go through Aqua Minerale now, no nice looking tidy there, no mistakes so far. Very tricky complex. That Jack Lancer with a bit of a run towards the chicane, looks to the inside, briefly filing a single file now through the chicane, and keeping Tyler Hammer honest, it seems. But he got a nice run out of the chicane. They're side by side. They go through towards the kink, towards the Rivazzas there, side by side, into the braking zone, and Jack Lancaster just gets ahead.
Yeah, with confidence as well, pulling across the nose of Hammer in the braking zone, and will carry on now. Of course, Lancaster was on the front row, so they're going to be a bit disappointed to have dropped back after per roll-off from the green flag. But back up P3 will be now chasing down Dave Wood. Andy Hearn down in P10, managed to avoid most of the chaos. It seems they've made up a few positions off the start. And here we have Jacob Hine, another one who made it through cleanly, the last car that made it through cleanly in the opening lap, trying to get a move on Max Farrell to the inside of the Porsche. Will get the move done nice and easily. The Porsche not fighting too hard as Spiller in the background closes up on this battle and will be trying to overtake the Proton Porsche.
Indeed, we've got a pack of Porsches here all wanting in on the action, and there's a little Alpine there that's a pigeon amongst the cats, if you like, up into 7th. Dave Spilly, as you say, yeah, into the brakes now for Toast, chasing down Max Farrell. Last lap was fairly quicker than Max, but with the opening chaos, it's hard to judge. Obviously, early lap times, have to wait and see once everything settles down. If Dave Spiller isn't already passed by then, we see, I think, Max recovering, going a little bit wide at the top of the hill there, briefly. And let's Dave Spiller close up ever so much on the brakes as well, going to Aqua Minerale a bit more confident perhaps on the brakes. It's downhill braking, very tricky, but Dave Spiller seems to have nailed it as they head towards the chicane onto the braking zone once again, turning for the chicane. Fairly tidy over the curve. The Porsche of Spiller are a lot more confident, it seems, over the second part. They're taking a lot more of the curbing at the apex there than Max is ahead of him.
And just in on timing, Tomlinson has got themselves in front of Tyler Hammer, as well as Dave Spiller just running in deep into the first Ravazza in the slipstream, and dirty hour of Max Farrell, the Porsche in front, and will certainly not be close enough to make a move. You can see in the background as well, Andy Hearn closing up on this battle as well as they come to the end of the third lap. And even though we're only 3 laps into the race, there has been a lot of field spreads. The 7th place is 24 seconds off the lead already. That's a massive gap. So yeah, just shows how chaotic the start of the race was for the hypercars. Tim Bob here that rolled off the back of the grid, putting pressure on fellow McLaren of Jar Page for 24th overall, switches to the outside in the braking zone for the first Ravazza. Doesn't quite work out for them, as just seen Jacob Hines dropping down the order and has had a spin coming out of Variante Villeneuve up against the walls, trying to reverse and get the car turned around without sort of backing up onto the racing line. Trying to be very safe there. Jar Page ran wide into the gravel at the Ravazzas and has dropped a few positions down to 27th overall behind Ben Myatt. But yeah, great start for Tim Bob, who's got themselves from 31st up to 24th into the top 10 of the GT3 pack.
Indeed, on his way, indeed. And down on his way to chase Tom Watson. Jacob Hines is finally on his way again, but deep inside that GT3 field. We'll have to get past them when he can. Obviously, they're not providing blue flags yet, but it's a tricky track to overtake as it is. Maybe they'll be nice if they're not amongst their own battles. Dave Spiller and Max Farrell briefly, I think, swap positions there. Dave Spiller ahead of Max Farrell now. We saw him before chasing him down. He's on his way 8/10 past Max Farrell. Now Center also just getting past, I was going to say Nick Manders, but with a mistake there at the Ravazzas, lets Nick back through again.
Trying to go for a move, but couldn't get the car slowed down and ended up in the gravel, but still has plenty of time to close down the gap once more. These two not fighting for the position, so they want to be having started towards the front of the grid from P6 for Manders, but P3 for Tut, but now they're fighting outside the top 10 here, P11 and P12, with the Porsche of Stevie being not too far behind. So yeah, disappointing start for these two, and if they do continue to fight each other, they're not going to help in the recovery drives that they want to make, try and catch up to some of the cars in front that they know they're quicker than, and get themselves back towards where they should be.
Indeed, indeed, and yeah, 52 minutes to go. It's a long time to feel like you're going to sit behind someone that you're faster against. You are constantly looking for opportunities, and maybe sometimes you just try a little bit too hard and make that mistake as they fire through Aqua Minerale up the hill now towards the chicane. This is a good spot. If you get a nice run coming out of Aqua Minerale, you can look to set something up for the chicane if you know you can trust the other driver to kind of respect your position, if you like. A little bit of an error there, it looks like, from Seddon coming out of the chicane. A bit of a loose rear end. Chasing down Nick Manders though straight away down the hill, now onto the brakes through Ravazza. Both those drivers slightly late of the apex, but still carrying plenty of speed as they go through the final corner, using all the exit center. Again, a bit of a wiggle on the rear again, and does have Stevie Bain behind him. We can see there also chasing these guys down. Stevie enjoying these two fighting and letting him catch up as Center goes alongside Nick Manders, slingshots past him into the braking zone of turn 1, and looks like it's job done. Briefly, I thought Nick was going to come back then.
Yeah, instead of using the slipstream down the start-finish straight, which is very powerful here, to great effect, gets themselves in front. Nick Manders didn't seem to be fighting it too hard, maybe just realizing, hey, already much further back than I want to be. Let's not lose any more time as Max Farrell is putting on the pressure back on Dave Spiller, having lost that P7, isn't done with the fight, putting the pressure on. A little bit of a lockup as they closed in on the Penske portion from them, who pressures them a bit wide, who will have per exit. It'll be side by side up towards Variante Alta. Very difficult corner to go side by side, and Dave Spiller backing out of that one with Max Farrell getting themselves back into P7.
Indeed, lots of fighting going on as Stevie Bain also getting past Nick Manders amongst the pack well and truly with Sen Tut also there as he goes sideways into the chicane, still drifting from yesterday in that Porsche. Manages to hold on to P12 though, and Nick obviously right behind him, ready to take that position back if Stevie chooses to drift any more times. They head obviously down onto the brakes now, turn in and carry all the speed as much as you can. Fairly tidy, no little errors from Sen Tut this time, but even with that error last lap, as you said, the slipstream was so powerful, he was still able to get on by. And Stevie Bain looking to lap up that slipstream now and close in, but looks to be dropping back actually.
I'm surprised Stevie being closed up against 7/10 on Sen Tut that last lap. So yeah, I didn't think it was going to be quite close enough for an attack this soon, but yeah, he's already got himself past Manders. Manders does seem to be really struggling at this part of the race, maybe carrying a lot of damage from the opening lap. So we'll have to see. Maybe might be thinking of coming in for an early pit stop, as I would say the pit window has opened for the hypercars. Well, certainly has. Jacob Hein has been in for a pit stop, was stopped for a whole minute in their pit box. Currently the last of our runners overall. But we're turning our attention to the GT3 field as Johnny Ashley has closed back on to Vesparis. Johnny wants his lead back, having had pole position, but losing it off the start of the grid. He has the fastest lap within the GT3 class, but Vesparis put in a personal best last time round. He is not wanting to give this up easily. A look to the inside by defense into the back. It's contact between our two GT3 leaders. Vesparis carries on in front, but both of these drivers are getting aggressive and they have only just closed in on each other. So not wasting any time, a little bit of a defense once again into Paratella for the BMW. And just to make matters a little more interesting, a Ferrari hypercars coming up to lap both of these, and Johnny trying to look and see if they could follow the Ferrari through, but unable to, possibly looking to get a better drive out of Aqua Minerale, but is piling on the pressure at this early stage of the race.
Indeed, through the chicane now. Johnny surely must, recognize, as long as he sticks in this position and gets a good run out of the final corner, he's close enough, especially with that slipstream and the Mustang power to maybe whiz on by with the long straight, but looking for the opportunity while he can just to carry the momentum down the outside at the first Ravazza there, maybe compromising himself a little bit there, maybe just getting some cleaner air, if you like, through the final corner. Now, both those drivers, a little bit of a wiggle at the rear there, but still have hypercars trying to get past as well. Johnny dropped back now 4/10 or so, and starting to close up again now with the slipstream. Let's see if there's enough time for him to make a move as they head towards the kink now at turn 1, towards what really is turn 2. Now onto the brakes, and it looks like Johnny might have to wait another lap.
Yeah, Johnny, I think his best chances, as you say, setting up the second Ravazza, getting a good exit and using that slipstream down the start-finish straight, or maybe alternatively an awkward pass like this, the Cadillac looking to the inside but backs out of it, thinking about a move on the BMW. A move like that from a hypercar compromising the BMW could open the opportunity that Johnny Ash is looking for. And we've still got a long way to go, over 46.5 minutes. He doesn't need to make an impatient move like what he tried last lap, but he's trying for one down the inside into Paratella, backs out of it in the end. But yeah, Johnny does not want to wait around. There is no patience for him. He wants to get this move done as soon as he possibly can.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, I could totally understand that if he's in the middle of the field and he's qualified well and he's dropped back, but he's P2. Overtaking Leon would put him at P1 in class. So it's not like he's got to get past it as soon as he can to catch up to the next driver in the field, as we see them slide through that chicane there. You know, this is all that Johnny needs to do. So he can take his time, set this up, do it right, and avoid any contacts or going off tracks, really. Nick Mander's also still dropping back off CV Beta. I just looked at their fastest speed through the speed trap, and actually Nick must be struggling. 6 kph off to the next driver, and actually 10 kph off the average. So really is struggling, that Ferrari, it seems, as Johnny actually comes through the final corner. This time a little bit closer to Leon with that slipstream, maybe. Let's see again as they head towards the start-finish line, closing up to 3/10 now. Approaching this turn 1 kink. 2/10 is the gap. Maybe they'll think about it. They're both on the inside. Both go to the outside for the race line. Johnny again on the inside there, maybe just half thinking about a move, but not close enough this time.
As Johnny would say himself, he's not used to being this competitive from ACC. It's a bit of a surprise, and maybe it's getting to him a little bit, just suddenly in the opportunity for wins. Already has one this season, so it's not like he's going for his first win. Also had a podium last time out at the WEC Portimao, but maybe it's got to his head a little bit, and he's got that taste for victory. He wants more. He wants another one here, and he's maybe going a slight bit too aggressive for it. Already seen a bit of contact between these two. Will we see some more? I wouldn't be too surprised at this rate, but yeah, Johnny's still looking for the opportunity to get the move done. But I think sooner or later, I think Johnny will get this move done. It's just a matter of how long it takes him to do it, but that doesn't really matter in the end if he, as long as he gets it before the race finishes.
Exactly, and there's plenty of other battles all across the field. I saw briefly Dan Tomlinson and Tyler Hammer swap places again, so maybe a bit of side-by-side action there. Tyler Hammer now up to 5th on the back of Dan Tomlinson, obviously. Jack Lanster, who's caught up to Dave Wood as well, 6/10 off of him. We've also got Paul O'Grady and Simon Harris swapping places in the GT3 field. If we can see them, there they are. They've got a hypercar to manage as well as they go through the chicane there. Very different approaches to that chicane, as maybe Paul O'Grady actually losing out on Simon Harris, despite Simon Harris's different and maybe slightly slower entry there.
Well, Paul O'Grady, well, slightly faster, didn't quite make the corner though, and respectfully give up the position, slowing down to make sure they didn't get a track cut. I don't believe the track limit is too harsh for these races, but Imola is a track where you can easily pick it up, especially at a chicane like that Variante Alta. You just cut it a little bit too much and pink. There's some track limit points. You do that a few too many times, you will get a drive-through penalty that will be very costly down the start-finish straight here. But we come back to this battle for the lead. Johnny's still trying to set this one up. He has not given up, of course, but he's maybe just realizing that he needs to be a little bit patient. No point pushing too early now. If he is pushing too early now, he might hurt the tires, might wear them out a little bit more, which could make it more difficult to actually make the move a little later on in the race. See different lines, a little bit wide for the BMW. This could be the opportunity for the Mustang if it has a good run here in the slipstream coming down to the Variante Alta. How aggressive will Johnny be? It's a difficult overtaking opportunity. He's going to get his bumper as close as he can under the wing of the BMW. A couple of hypercars coming through as well. That's going to be Max Farrell and Spiller for P7 and 8 in the hypercar field. The GT3 cars letting them through. The BMW going defensive as a result. Johnny trying to get a cutback as one of those hypercars puts a couple of wheels into the gravel. I believe that was Farrell that put those wheels in the gravel. Has carried on. But in the slipstream for Johnny Ashley, he is very close here. He should be able to get alongside the BMW, defending the inside for the first chicane. But Johnny's gonna get his nose in front as they get into the braking zone. The BMW a little braver on the brakes and will hold on to that position for now. Can Johnny Ashley get a better exit out of the Tamburello chicane though? Does have that better exit. Does he go to the inside? He waits for the hypercar to move through. Don't want to slam the door of the hypercar, and the BMW out wide, really tight line into the second part of the chicane, but Johnny looking round the outside, puts himself onto gravel and will drop back for now. We'll have to reclaim all that space once again, but yeah, nearly got the opportunity there, but yeah, just misjudged where the space was going to open up coming out of Variant de Villeneuve.
Indeed, and taking those lines is always a compromise. Take a tighter line, you're going to run out slightly wider, and there just happens to be gravel at that particular section. But some great racing overall, great respect. Obviously, trying to manage the hypercars, trying to go side by side through the chicanes. Great job. Stevie Bain just ahead of this lot, by the way. Briefly, 2/10 on the back of Charlie Morgan, but with the compression of Aqua Minerale, that's understandable. But still in fighting range, as they've got this traffic to also navigate. As we see Charlie Morgan, I think briefly struggle with the rear, trying to keep it in check, trying to get the car stopped for the chicane, and Stevie Bain gets past that BMW of I don't know. Actually, I want to say something Harris, but it could not be. Actually, it's Liam Vespers, of course it is. As he gets on his way again towards Charlie Morgan. We've actually got... No, that's cars lapping. This is the closest battle. We'll stick with this.
Yeah, so Stevie Bain on the back of Charlie Morgan. They're coming across the line. Stevie was 1.8 seconds. Sorry, we're reading the wrong time. So it's only a tenth quicker last lap, but is much quicker when it comes to their fastest laps. So can Stevie, how quickly will Stevie be able to make a move? As we are a third of the way into the race, can see Stevie more confident, carrying more speed, looks to the inside of Tosa, doesn't quite get alongside, doesn't fully commit to the move, which is probably the safer thing to do at this stage of the race. But Stevie definitely looking more confident of the two drivers as they try and get themselves into the top 10 here. Just how long will it take for him to make a move? As we've seen from a couple of drivers, can be difficult. A little lock up there from Stevie, using more of that exit curb and running a little bit wide through Aqua Minerale.
Indeed, something as well. I just noticed they're going through Tosa. I don't know how representative this really is, but as actually the BMW has to cut the chicane, I guess a tiny bit of lock up there. Let's let Stevie go, obviously, because of that, and to avoid a penalty, and promote Stevie to P10, who will be on his way to chase down Sentai and P9 in no time. But just to finish that thought, something representative, we can see it again here. We can see the brake disc glow, obviously, under braking, and we can actually see the kind of the brake bias preference of the drivers in certain corners. We can see into Tosa, for instance, the BMW using a bit more rearward brakes, whereas Stevie having it a bit more on the front, it seems. So a bit of if it is representative, I'm really quite stoked about that, to be honest, from a nerd perspective. But from a racing perspective, here's Sento, who's a 10th off of Max Farrell. Max Farrell had another battle now, defending from the Cadillac there as they head up towards Tosa, I believe. Onto the brakes for the hairpin. Get a nice exit, get the power on as soon as you can, feed it in progressively, and get on your way up the hill towards Piratella.
Yeah, of course, Tut's still on that recovery drive. Now on the back of Farrell. A minute off the lead now for the pair of these. As a little look to the inside of Aqua Minerale. No potential for a safe move there, but you can see how much Tut just closes in through Aqua Minerale. In the slipstreams ahead to Variant de Alda. Are they going to think of a move? They're looking to the inside. Will claim the inside, takes the second apex. Very authoritative move there from Tut to get themselves in front of Max Farrell just before they came up on some GT3s as well. So important to sort of get that move done before they came up on those cars. But yeah, Tut now going to be trying to chase down Dave Spiller in front, who is only about 2.2 seconds in front, so shouldn't take him too long to close that gap in.
Indeed, and in the lead, we're still got, obviously, Alvin Blomqvist, Dave Wood, 8 seconds off with Jack Lancaster, 1.3 seconds behind, and they're not actually... that gap isn't growing that much. I mean, we can see now the gap is closing from Dave Wood to the leader, but last laps were pretty much identical between Wood and Blomqvist, less than a tenth difference, really. I think it's about 6 thousandths is the difference there, actually, and Jack Lancaster himself wasn't too far behind that either, so really are lapping quite consistently in the top three here. So if they keep the pace up, and maybe if Elvin makes an error in one corner, that's enough to close that gap. We also see Stephen Bain making an error there into the gravel. Let's quickly see how that happened.
coming out of around Tambrello. Oh, there's a McLaren off on the exit there. Just comes up on the McLaren, has to take a lot of curb, and that just really unsells the car. Spins off into the gravel, gets it, keeps it rolling, keeps out of the barrier, spins the wheel to avoid stalling the car, and gets going again. Will have lost quite a bit of time from that, but doesn't have any damage, as we see with a set touch, just putting a couple of wheels onto the grass. They're coming up to the back here. They've not got the car slowed down. Fast off into the gravel, into the wall as well. Aqua Minerale for Said and Tut. Crucial mistake there, and it is an odd mistake. I wonder if it seems a bit more than just a small lockup for them, either a massive lockup or a bit of a failure there, but it has dropped them back down to P10. They've lost about 20 seconds with that incident. So, and we see a Ferrari off here as well.
This is Nick Manders, going through the chicane there. We see a bit of a wobbling exit with that. Doesn't seem to be the issue. Running down the hill now behind the Porsche ahead of him. That might be Stevie Bain. Down onto the brakes, just onto the grass, loses the rear, trying to avoid the hypercar, and understandably, just breaks onto the grass there, unfortunately.
It shows you how challenging this track can be, especially while you're having to worry about the traffic of the other class around you. Crucial mistakes being made from two quick drivers, both qualified within the top 6, both of them outside of the top 10 as it stands. As a reminder, for a championship, only the top 10 in each class score, so you really do want to be in that top 10 if you're worried about the championship, but especially if you have the pace that those two drivers have, I feel like it's almost necessary to be in the top 10, and Said and Tut has actually come to pit lane as we're following this battle for P7 in the GT3 class. Simon Harris trying to close up to Tom Watson. Have a little look at the last lap time. In fact, I believe Tom Watson made a move for P7 last lap. Looking at the times, was about 1.8 seconds quicker and is only 1 second in front. So that would suggest a change of position between these two last lap. The Aston Martin driver getting in front and already pulling a 1 second gap.
Indeed. Jack Lancaster also here in third, almost within half a second of Dave Wood, actually. Dave Wood, who's dropped back from Elvin by a couple seconds now, so I'd imagine defending or trying to take different lines to get past these GT3 cars is what's pushing him back towards Jack Lancaster. As we see actually Dan Thomason and Tyler Hammer themselves in a battle here, as they are also trying to lap GT3 cars. We see there Johnny Ashley briefly. So tricky because some of these corners, you want to get your line bang on right to be able to maximize the corner without running too wide or covering, losing too much speed. And with GT3 cars all over the show, it does add an extra challenge. But that's what racing's all about, challenges. As indeed Dan Thompson drops off, and we'll go back to Jack Lancaster, who was 2/10 away.
I think we should go to Johnny Ash, because when we cut to that battle, Vespars had to run wide to let one of the hypercars through, and the Ravatzes, both of them late on the brakes, sliding into the first chicane as Johnny Ash back into the slipstream, has the better exit. The BMW going a little bit defensive. Johnny sticking to the racing line, doesn't want to go for a move there, slightly wide through the first part, leaves it a bit tight and gives the BMW a bit more breathing space as they come up to Tosa. But that shows you one moment with the hypercars that just doesn't go your way, and that 1 second gap that Vespars has completely gone. The pressure is back on in this fight for the lead of GT3.
Indeed, and there's 32 more minutes to have moments with hypercars, and Johnny Ashley just has to stay on the track, stay in that position and ready to strike, and be in that position to take advantage of any errors or hypercar moments or anything like that, and claim the lead of the GT3 class. There's also obviously a pit stop to consider, so maybe Johnny Ashley thinking maybe an undercut's a good idea, or if there's too much traffic going on behind him, just start into the pits and save a couple tenths, and maybe those couple tenths are enough to jump Leon Vespers ahead. And similarly, sure, they're going to have to stop, so they're not going to be fuel saving as much, but the more fuel you take, the longer your stop is. So if they can fuel save enough to gain time, they can jump drivers in the pits that way. We also see here Max Farrell and Stevie Bain recovering, and let's get a little watch of that, because that looked quite intense.
Yeah, Max Farrell coming through the second chicane here, runs right onto the gravel, decides to rejoin after the gravel ends, but spins on the grass trying to rejoin and just lets the car roll. And Stevie, in sort of avoidance and surprise, maybe coming up on the instant, loses the car by themselves, locking the rear brakes, going for, we could say, a handbrake turn into Tosa. Hasn't worked out for them as they're still behind Farrell after Farrell's even bigger mistake. So yeah, these two drivers now fighting over the final two positions within the top 10. Stevie being Max Farrell going a little bit defensive into the first Ravazza. Stevie struggling to get the car slowed down in the slipstream, blocking the front left brake a little bit, but we'll have the slipstream here down to start finish straight. Can they make a move into the first chicane? As you can see, they're following the tracks of their fellow Porsche driver. Closing in now as they get towards turn one, as they're closing up on a Porsche GT3, but Stevie too late on the brakes, has to pull onto the grass to not run into the back of Max Farrell, and yeah, that's going to lose a bit of time. A wobble there for Farrell as they pull out alongside the Porsche GT3, but yeah, that could have been a costly a bit of a clumsy mistake from Stevie, but we cut now to the battle of GT3s for the lead. Once again, Johnny Ash right on the tail end of the BMW, who once again compromised a little bit by traffic, going defensive into the first Ravazza. Compromises them slightly, trying to get the best exits they can onto the start finish straight. The BMW using all of the curb there, running right up to the gravel, does open them up a car length as they head onto the straight, but the slipstream is going to be allow the Mustang to close in again. Porsche hypercar goes past. You can see Johnny closing up, but the BMW just holding the left-hand side white line as they head into T1. Johnny not braving a move round the outside, instead holds back a little bit to get the better exit, which they do. Closing up once more to the second chicane. BMW has to go even more defensive, and this time Johnny again backs out on the outside line, doesn't want to commit to a move, but still trying to get the better exit. Looks to the inside at Tosa, but isn't close enough for a move this time by, as see the Porsche hypercar in front of them had a spin. I believe that's Lasavia Noda who is recovering after a spin there, having just passed these two cars on start finish straight, but Johnny Ashley still following Leon Vesperes for the lead in GT3.
Indeed, and 3.5 kph quicker is Johnny Ashley, by the way, in the speed trap compared to Leon Vesperes. So the Mustang has some legs on the straight, but Johnny seemingly not able to find a way past as of yet. Does have a Porsche to let go here now, though, as they head up towards the chicane. Porsche obviously just ahead of the BMW now, a bit of smoke from, I'd imagine, a bit of a lock-up from the Porsche ahead. And actually, Leon Vesperes trying to get out the way, trying to get the power down.
That could be the moment. That could be the moment that costs Leon Vesperes the lead. Johnny Ash with the run. They bang wheels heading towards the first Ravazza. Johnny trying to close off the inside. Leon Vesperes wants to make a move to get the lead back, but unfortunately cannot. Johnny has closed the door and has taken the lead of the GT3 class. Leon Vesperes held up by Lasavia Noda, who had to pass for the second time that lap, having made the mistake at the Tosa hairpin. But we now cut to this fight, P9 in the hypercar class. Stevie being trying to get past Max Farrell after both of them had a mistake. Max Farrell wide at first, and then Stevie being locking the brakes up in sort of reaction, in avoidance of the Porsche driver in front of them. But they also have a few hypercars behind them. None of them are on the same lap, I believe. I'm trying to figure out which three hypercars that might be, but not quite able to tell. There's contact at the McLaren being sent into the wall, and heavy more contact into T1. Stevie into the side of Max Farrell. Things have gone wrong. It's kind of similar to how they did on lap one.
Indeed, and obviously Stevie, with those poorer rear tyres, I'd imagine struggling to not lock up a bit more than if he had fresher tyres. And there's the yellow flag also for Ollie Knowles in that GT3 there, limping towards the track. I think he might be really struggling there. But yeah, some great battling. Unfortunately,
missing a tyre, I wonder.
It does look like it. I can't move the camera from here. So I'll have to assume so. Because the right run is a bit lower. And he was struggling to get back towards the left.
Yes, that is Ollie. Knowles, they've returned to the garage, so maybe missing the front wheel there. But yeah, just parking upside the road, kind of by a service road, as you would do in real life, so that the marshals can easily recover your car. So we'll say the marshals able to quickly recover. See a twitch coming through, and yeah, that wheel pops right off through Peritella. Very, very costly mistake there for Ollie Knowles. Unfortunately, as we see, is that Paul Grady or Tim Bob running wide here? We'll get a replay as they're coming through Peritella down towards Aqua Minerale.
Indeed, this is Paul O'Grady. Goes onto the grass, and there's no stopping power watcher there. Loses the rear, heavy into the wall, loses the rear wing as well. So we'll, have an incredibly hard job getting back to the pits. We'll be limping as slow as he can to get there safely. And CV Bain and Max Farrell finding themselves yet again coming together, this time in the pit lane, it seems. I don't know if Max is in his box there.
He's been turned, maybe waiting for damage to repair. So we've got a replay here. Cadillac, careful coming across the nose of GT3 in a braking zone. Luckily, that isn't a heavy braking zone. Running into the gravel a little bit, and does get the car slowed down for Tosa. Picks up the part a little bit too early. Spins the car around, whack on the inside barrier just for good measure.
Indeed, there are yellow flags everywhere. Charlie Morgan here in the BMW, also looking to recover. Paul O'Grady as well, off into the gravel. Obviously, the rear wing missing will explain that. There was another one, Mark Bryson, it seems, as well. So lots of drivers struggling now. They've gone past the halfway mark. Maybe the tyres have just taken a bit too much abuse. Maybe they get a bit too lax with the throttle. This is Darren Wilkes also recovering without a wing, a long way off at Peritella. So must be coming. Sorry, that's Ravazza there even. So lots of speed coming down the hill and just not getting it stopped in time. Or maybe he had the rear wing missing before that.
Good awareness there from the Cadillac hybrid car, running all the way to the left-hand side curb just to make sure the Mustang that they were passing had enough space to pass the McLaren. But yeah, another McLaren driver missing their rear wing. A lot of mistakes going on in this middle phase of the race. And by the way, Max Farrell was reversing down pit lane, so something went really wrong with their pit stop. I don't know what exactly, but they have dropped towards the back. They are not the last of our hybrid cars. That is Said and Tut at the back of our field after an incident on lap 1 and then further issue, and Max Farrell has now picked up a penalty as well. So yeah, a day to forget for the Porsche driver of Max Farrell, as we see here Dave Wood has opened up a 4.5 second gap to Lancaster for P2.
Indeed, and has actually closed up again on Elvin Blomqvist, less than what he was before. We saw him earlier, so obviously 8 seconds earlier before he even got involved with Jack Lancaster. So really is trying to catch up now to Elvin Blomqvist. Another yellow flag. That's for Max Farrell yet again, really into the walls there, facing the wrong way as well. So some mega damage, I'd imagine, on that car there. And we'll stick with Dave Wood. And also we can see the Virgin Energy there on the side there. So 17%, 18% for the top two. Lancaster Hammer being able to go a little bit more than that. Obviously, a couple of cars have stopped, so they'll have topped up their Virgin Energy, Bainhern, Manders, for instance. But interesting, because I would imagine 22%, I don't think that's enough, but they've got fuel to worry about anyway. So, yeah, just be a quicker stop, I guess.
Yeah, trying to look at the people who have pitted. Everyone from Daniel Lindblom back has pitted. So Lindblom only 29%. That might be a little low to make it to the end. Yeah, well, very low. We're not even, well, more than a third of the race to go. That's less of a third of energy to go, as we see Dave Wood nearly getting into the back of Nick Manders. These two were quite close to each other on the grid, but after that one have found themselves a lap apart. Nick Manders trying to get past Andy Hearn for P11 as they're coming towards Aqua Minerale, but Dave Wood wants down the inside. A very ambitious, very risky move, especially when lapping another driver. But Nick Manders gives them the space, and yeah, very bold move from Dave Wood. They're getting past their fellow Ferrari.
Indeed, and that puts a car in between Nick and Andy there, who were battling briefly, but Dave now giving Nick a little bit of a tow towards the Porsche. Obviously, there will be a blue flag, I'd imagine, for the Ferrari, for the Porsche there to let the Ferrari through. And actually, they've been slightly compromised by Dave Woods, lapping them right on the back of Andy. Now is Nick Manders ready to strike as they enter the start-finish straight. Bit of overlap there, I think, so not taking advantage of the slipstream, maybe a bit of side slipstream there, side draft, as they head through the little kink towards turn 2 onto the brakes. Squirrely Ferrari in the background, but hasn't got the job done for now, but really keeping Andy in check and really applying the pressure there.
Manders was all over the curb trying to get to the inside for T1. Andy maybe not quite leaving enough space for him there. But yeah, these two getting a little bit aggressive. Manders all over the inside curb there through the Villeneuve chicane as they try and pass, but they've got a Cadillac coming up their inside. This would be Lancaster now, I assume, putting a lap on them. But once again, for Manders, really just let the caddy go, you know, they're a lap in front, you're not fighting them, and hope that when they get past the Porsche, which it looks like it's going to do here in Aqua Minerale, that compromises them enough that you can maybe make a move outside of Aqua Minerale. Not possible, but might have a good exit here as they head towards Variante Alta, looking to the inside a little bit, thinking about a move, decides better of it in the end.
Indeed, for now, both these drivers have stopped, so they are going to the end. They have to settle the track, and actually, side by side, they go towards the final set of corners here. Just edging ahead, but obviously there's a kick that they have to get onto the brakes as well, but just gets it done, covers off the Porsche as well. A little bit of smoke from a tiny bit of lockup, but on their way now, and Nick Manders ahead. Is he ahead enough? And a little bit of wiggle as well coming through the final corner, so gives Andy Hearn a chance, and with the slipstream, the gap is closing ever so slightly. And let's see what they've got. I don't think it'll be enough, but certainly will give Andy a chance to come back at him.
Do you think we could have a replay of Dave Wood maybe about 30 seconds ago?
Not a problem. Let me get that up for you.
He has just come into the pits, but I noticed when he was coming into the pits, he was behind Jack Lancaster. He's gone deep into the first Ravazza, bouncing over the gravel and heading through second Ravazza. That's Lancaster there through for P2. Dave Wood into the pits, maybe distracted, setting up their pit stop, messing up their braking point at the end of the lap, has finished their pit stop, heading towards pit exit. A very crucial out lap here for Dave Wood if they want to try and reclaim P2 in this race.
Indeed, 19 seconds stop, so about average, I think, compared to what the other guys are, ignoring some of the damage, but on his way now there. A good spot, by the way, nothing gets past you, and yeah, Dave getting caught out there, unfortunately, as he's on his way, I should say, crucial out lap now as well. Gives those tyres a rest through the pit lane now, can get them back up to where he needs to be. In a bit of free air as well, which is obviously going to help, yeah, Jack Lancaster also, I guess, seeing Dave pit, also trying to go as fast as he can now, as funny as that sounds.
Interestingly, does not cover the pit stop, carries on, thinking that they have enough pace. We'll have to keep an eye on the lap times. Dave Wood does have a better personal best. It is about 1.5 tenths quicker than Lancaster's personal best, but of course that doesn't really matter. It's about what lap times they can do at this portion of the race. We are just over 40 minutes into the race, so the tires will be hurting quite a bit, especially if you've had some lockups like that one for Dave Wood. A slide there for Jack Lancaster as they were trying to put the power down out of Tosa. Dave Wood into the first Ravazza, sort of angling the car in towards the first apex in the braking zone. Obviously this time being an out lap will not be representative as they make their way past GT3 McLaren. We see a Porsche in the background there. I think that might be, yeah, that's Mark Bryson. stopped there, currently 15th within that GT3 field. Last of our GT3 still running after Ollie Knowles had to retire with that missing tyre. So yeah, it looks like that Porsche sustained quite a bit of damage, but should be able to get back going at least. Let's see, does Lancaster respond this time round? No, as they make their way around the Aston GT3, they are staying out. Their last lap was a 33.3. This time they do a 32.9, a little bit quicker, so it's all on Dave Wood. What can they respond with? They were about a second back as they went into pit lane, and of course we've got to consider both these cars might have different times in pit lane. Dave was stopped for 19 seconds, spending a total of 55 seconds within the pit lane. We could see a slightly shorter stop for Lancaster, but depends how they've been using their energy. As we have Spiller into pit lane now. Quite a few cars have made their pit stops. Just the top 4 within the hypercars still to pit. That's Blomqvist, Lancaster, Tyler Hammer and Dan Tomlinson. Dave Wood now is coming up, so we're about to get his first flying lap from once he left the pit lane. 32.9, remember, for Jack Lancaster, 33.3 for Dave Wood. So it looks like Lancaster does have the pace to hold on to P2 through this pit sequence.
Indeed, and that lap we saw a moment ago from Jack Lancaster, he improved his speed by half a kilometre, 0.5. So really was pushing coming out that final corner to really top out there. I think he's also got these. Oh, he's the second fastest in the speed trap, sorry. Behind Dave Woods, actually, by 0.1 of a kph, so incredibly close top speeds there. We haven't seen the Peugeot tonight. I don't think the Peugeot is racing, unfortunately, but I can't imagine how fast that would have gone as Jack Lancaster decides to pit entry. Is slightly hindered by a Mustang there, but the car gets rotated automatically and into his box. Now let's see how long he stops. Maybe he's taking slightly less fuel. Maybe he's taking slightly less virtual energy just to get out ahead of Dave Wood and jump him that way. Obviously, he was faster in those laps moments ago, but every little helps. Stops for 13.3 seconds, so a lot quicker than Dave Wood by 5.7 seconds. So already a massive jump there.
Yeah, and Alvin Blomqvist did have a comfortable lead, so should still come out in the lead. Coming out of pit lane now, see a Cadillac hypercar in the background. That is Dan Tomlinson, still yet to pit. We'll just get to the inside here. Big lockup for the Cadillac, as that is a Porsche in the background. Don't think that Porsche is on the same lap, as we see Andy Hearn with a mistake, probably getting onto the par a little too aggressively out of that Toza hairpin, going for a little spin, which we've seen a couple of. A car off through the gravel in front, see all the dust as Alvin Blomqvist on the back of Dan Tomlinson. Go try and get a move done here, but we'll have to wait a little bit as they're coming past a few GT3 cars all in a line coming towards Periada. The Astons hold a wide line to let the hypercars through on the inside, and they get through cleanly enough. This isn't ideal for Blomqvist, but lucky enough they did have that gap. Meanwhile, Jack Lancaster from a net second place is into the pits. Their last lap was a 32.4, but Dave Wood put in a personal best at 31.9. So they were half a second quicker, depending all eyes on how long Jack Lancaster is stopped in their pit box here, as we see wide for Daniel Lindblom at the Ravazzas.
Indeed, and I've just remembered a thought. I remember briefly a conversation that people deciding to use the red Cadillac to mix it up a little bit and have less yellow Cadillacs. I've seen nothing but red Cadillacs now. Obviously, there's been a blue one of Jack Lancaster, but we've gone Said and Tuck, but we've gone in the completely other direction now. Also, Jack Lancaster here exiting the pits, stopped 4 and a bit seconds quicker than Dave Wood, and clearly ahead of him there.
Yeah, comes out clearly in second place, waiting for the gap to just update. Looks like it is around 8.5 seconds. That is a massive gap compared to what it was before they came into the pits. But yeah, Dave Wood losing about 6 seconds in pit time for the pit sequence. Yeah, they'll be ruining that mistake. And but yeah, really, looking at the strategies, it was likely that they were going to lose the place with the pit stop anyway, with the longer pit stops. So Dave maybe needs to rethink the strategies a little bit for the next round. Elvin Blomqvist, by the way, has finally got in front of Dan Tomlinson, as we see Max Farrell's struggles still continuing. Another spin out of the first chicane, as Tyler Hammer, last of our second to last of our hypercars, coming in for their pit stop.
Indeed, Jacob Hine here in a battle with Andy Hearn, but has the slipstream going down the start-finish straight. Pulls alongside, onto the curb and almost the grass as well, just to get past him. Doesn't get past on the start-finish straight, but into the braking zone, onto the brakes. A little bit of door bang there, if you like, through the first chicane, and the Porsche remains ahead. There's a little bit of contact that spins Jacob Hine around as they go through the corner there, unfortunately. And that completely diffuses that battle and leaves Jacob facing the wrong way.
Yeah, I must say, I'd like to see a little more respect from Andy Hearn in that battle. You know, Jacob was alongside on the start-finish straight, and Andy was pushing him up onto that inside curb. There's no need for that. You know, Bar just about left enough space on the first apex of the first chicane, and then the third apex. Jacob wasn't quite far enough alongside by that point. But yeah, unfortunate for Jacob there. But we now cut to this GT3 battle. Matthias Fuskin is onto the back of Trinket de Tas now, closed in for 10th last lap. These two are fighting over P4 in the GT3 field, but we still have one GT3 car to make a pit stop. That is Athel Basker, who is in the lead. They'll drop behind this battle, and it will be for the final podium place once that final pit stop takes place. Jacob Hine now coming up to pass these two GT3s who stay clearly to the left-hand side out of Aqua Minerale. That can be one of the awkward points. Sometimes you just don't know how far across the track is the GT3 going to come on the racing line. So good driving there from the GT3s just to make that as clear as it can be. The Mustang now with the run towards Ravatzes looks to the inside, not brave enough on the brakes to get alongside. Now have one of the blue Cadillacs behind them as they come out of the final corner. Blue Cadillac will go past, and the Mustang will now get alongside the Ferrari. It'll be the inside for the first chicane. The Mustang with the momentum will get its nose in front. Trinket de Tas will have to fight this one really hard if they want to hold on to P3, as the Mustang is entirely in front, but the Ferrari cuts back to the inside, gets alongside. The Mustang leaves the door open, and Trinket de Tas holds on to P3 with a brilliant overtake to retake P3 into T1, but this Mustang is not done as we go to a replay of a little earlier on in the map. Now back to live images. The Mustang still hounding the Ferrari, taking slightly different lines, trying to get a better exit, which they do. They're going to get alongside. It'll be the inside for Peritella as they come up over the crest into the left-hander. Now the Mustang just alongside, but not able to carry the momentum. The Ferrari is holding on for now, but it'll be side by side into Aqua Minerale. The Mustang backside, maybe thinking about a cutback, doesn't quite get to the inside, gets a little bounce off the inside curve through the right-hander and drops back from the Ferrari a little bit. Will need a good final sector here if they want to mount an attack into the first chicane next time around.
Indeed, and we've seen how quick the Mustang can be on the straights as well. Just have to keep up with Trinket now, maybe get a good run out the final corner, but the gap is growing slightly. I say that it's coming down, but still half a second as they approach the final two corners. Onto the brakes, they close up without getting too close, obviously. Use as much of the exit as you can and get on the power as soon as you can and get out the corner fairly even there as they go in down the start finish straight. The Mustang with the slipstream as well behind that 296. Same positions as last time round except inverted, but a great move from that Ferrari we saw, by the way, bouncing over the curves and overtaking the Mustang. But into the braking zone, it looks fairly settled for now. Mustang's obviously going to try and keep up with the Ferrari, and hopefully we'll see them continue to fight in the future.
Yes, the GT3 field started with a Mustang trying to pass, was a BMW for the lead. Now it's got a Mustang trying to pass a Ferrari for P3. We see Dan Tomlinson, who's been going quite slowly for a good part of this lap, not quite able to see why exactly. Oh, they've run out of energy. That would be why. Yeah, that is going to be pretty much the end of Dan Tomlinson's race. They're going to have a 100-second stop-go penalty for that.
It's worse than that. Yeah, they're a Cadillac. They won't be able to restart the engine. Right, when they stop, that's it. They can't.
No, that's the battery. Which
All right, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Whereas the virtual energy is like a virtual fuel tank.
Indeed. There's too many energies.
Yeah, the virtual energy, basically virtual fuel tank that combines the actual fuel tank and the battery power that the car uses, that helps balance all the cars on performance, the BOP, as we all know. So yeah, to pit lane for Dan Tomlinson, pretty much an early end to their race, unfortunately for them, having miscalculated that one. But we return to this battle. 5.5 minutes remain. Unlike that earlier battle we mentioned, this Mustang does not have the time to wait around. It needs to get a move done. It thought it had it done a couple of laps ago towards the first chicane, but the Ferrari was not giving up. Sent a move back down the inside. The Mustang saw it coming, let it happen. Wanted to be safe, would rather take a 4th place than crash out, even though they have a 26-second gap to the car behind. Dipping wheels into the gravel is not going to be helping Matthias Fuskin in this charge for P3. It is our only real battle on track. All the other cars have sort of spread out through their pit stops. You know, quick look down the pit times, quite a surprising variance in the pit stop times, helping to spread the field out, as here comes a Ferrari hypercar making their way through. Nice and cleanly on both cars. Has a little bit of a lockup into the second part of Aqua Minerale, but will carry on their day. And actually, these two drivers are closing up on Leon Vesperez, who we can see just in the foreground of shot coming into the Variante Alta. So this could turn into a 3-way battle for P2. Vesperez was 1.6 seconds slower than Trinket de Tas last lap. One more lap and the Ferrari should be right on the tail end of that BMW. It's going to be very difficult for that Ferrari to go for a move into P2, given that the Mustang is still right on their tail end, but dipping into their wheels into the gravel once more. The Mustang is dropping them back a few car lengths, giving Trinket de Tas a little bit of breathing room. Only 8 tenths gained for the Ferrari this time on the BMW in front, but 8 tenths is still 8 tenths. Not long to go. 3.5 minutes in this race, and we're about to have a 3-way fight for the podium in GT3.
Indeed, the pressure's on for all these drivers now. Leon obviously pushing to defend his P2 spot there. Trinket defending from Matthias, whilst also does have Leon in his sights as well, so maybe there's a possibility there for him, but Matthias behind, you know, really wanting at least P3 there, keeping the pressure on the Ferrari, not letting him relax for a moment as they go through Tosa. We see there a McLaren up ahead as well. That's on that car. They'll have to manage as well. We see the BMW ahead flashing, knowing what's up the hill there, and the inability really to get past the car through this technical sections here of Piratella and then Aqua Minerale. See if he's able to pull along. He is, from McLaren, getting out of the way at least for the BMW, now for the Ferrari and for the Mustang, all before the Aqua Minerale complex. Opens the gaps a little bit, but they're all straight away back on net, focusing with all their might as they head up towards the chicane now, getting closer and closer to Leon. Leon watching this unfold in his mirrors as well. Going through the chicane. The Ferrari just opening up the corner a bit more as he hops over those curbs now through the chicane. Mustang keeping it tidy as well. No errors there. Everyone focused on just getting as close as they can and overtaking the guys ahead. As I say, yet a couple of yellow flags actually for Daniel Lindblom, it seems, who's virtually stopped up ahead as they go through Rivatsa there.
The blobs in the gravel, and Piratella has dropped behind Andy Hearn for P10. So Andy picking up a point with that. And last time Villanoda was also going slow. So maybe contact between them is they were being as they were lapping each other, but that has actually brought Dave Spiller onto the back of Imola, as this race is certainly coming towards an end. The leader is just starting the final lap of this race, not too far behind these GT3s, who should just have enough of a gap to go for one more lap, which we'd love to see, so they can have a bit of time to fight it out. All three cars dipping wheels into the gravel on the exit of Variante Villeneuve. The BMW, probably the worst, had the biggest twitch of all of them, and that's allowed Ferrari to close in a little bit more. Half a second quicker the Ferrari was last lap than the BMW. The Mustang just a few hundredths quicker, wide through Paratella for the BMW. That's only going to help the Ferrari. About 6/10 covers these two cars as they go into Aqua Minerale, and they have BMW, that's Charlie Morgan hypercar coming up behind to lap them. That could make things a little bit awkward into Variante Alta as they close in with the Concertina. The BMWs side by side through there, but the Ferrari that really gets compromised the most. The BMW heads on its way with the acceleration, but the Ferrari within striking distance now of the BMW, but the Mustang is also there within striking distance to the inside. The Ferrari attacking or defending? It's defending against the Mustang. Has a look, but doesn't commit to the move, as that was very risky. Out of the final corner for the penultimate time of this race, they just about, the Ferrari you see in the background, that is the leader. Elvin Blomqvist comes across line, is actually starting another lap for him, so this will still be the final lap for the GT3s, but one more lap for the Hyper, for Elvin Blomqvist, and is expecting into T1. Elvin has separated the Ferrari and the Mustang, as trying to task all over the rear bumper of the BMW, is trying to get a run, looking to the inside. The BMW has no choice but to leave its space. Will have the inside, but the Ferrari swoops around the outside and has taken P2 on the final lap here. The Mustang looking to the inside, trying to capitalize on the BMWs per exit, is not quite able to. They're coming up to lap another BMW as well. That would be trying to find out Dean Smith that they are lapping. The Mustang looking for a move into Paratella, but it's not quite on. Gets a bit of a slow run through there and drops back a car length as they head towards Aqua Minerale. Another hypercar lining up to pass these two. This time it's Jank Lancaster, a little bit wide for the Mustang. Doesn't get the greatest exit, but Vespers is now on the charge, trying to retake P2 here as they come into Variante Alta. The Ferrari slightly compromised on the entry. Is that going to allow the BMW to get a better exit? It's in the slipstream. Will it have the acceleration? We'll have to find out at the braking zone. In the meantime, Elvin Blomqvist is coming through the final corner for the win, but we're watching this GT3 battle. They're late on the brakes, as late as they dare, just about pulling the car up before making contact with the cars in front of them. Out of the final corner, the Mustang kicks up a final bit of gravel. Johnny Ashley will take the win in the GT3 class. Elvin Blomqvist will take the win in the hypercars, but Trinket de Tass will take P2 on the final lap from Leon Vespers. Matthias Fuskin just missing out on a podium place in that GT3 field. Jack Lancaster will take P2 in the hypercars, and Dave Wood will round out the podium in the hypercars as well.
Some great racing there at the final moments there, some crucial moments, and yeah, extra lap with the Ferrari going around. Didn't affect that battle, obviously, with overtaking those cars anyway on that lap, but yeah, some great stuff there. We'll wait for everyone to cross the line and then we'll put on the finishing results. But oh, what a great race. I love Imola. It just needs so much concentration at all times. If you get complacent through a corner, you're either really slow or you're off the track.
And it does require precision. You put tires a little bit wide off the curbs, you're into the gravel. It's going to cost you time. And especially with the hypercars, you know, there's so many parts of this track where the racing line just kind of weaves from one side of the track, the start-finish line, and here, so we see the rest of the pack coming cross line. You know, it just weaves to the middle of the track, back to the right, then to the left, all before you've even thought about the braking zone up for the first chicane. You know, that can be tricky when the hypercars are trying to pass you, so you need to be extra aware of that. And yeah, we did see a bit of chaos at the start. A few mistakes from drivers in the middle of the track race, as you mentioned. Just maybe losing a bit of concentration. But yeah, then we had what a great run to the end, especially that battle for P2 in the GT3s. I believe we only have a couple of cars to come across the line, as we should now have our final race results. Elvin Blomqvist will take the win ahead of Jank Lancaster, with Dave Wood rounding off the podium. A mistake closed back up, only 2 seconds behind Lancaster at the end, but probably ruining that mistake, running wide at the first Ravazza before they came in for their pit stop. These three, a minute in front of Tyler Hammer, dominating this race. Of course, the other quick runners getting caught up in a lap 1 incident running further back. So Tyler Hammer in P4, Dave Spiller will finish in P5 ahead of Lasse Vianoda. 6th, Stevie Bain in 6th. Or 7th, sorry, ahead of Nick Manders. Charlie Morgan getting the BMW into P9, and Andy Hearn, 2 laps down, will take the final point. Jacob Hein then would be in P11 in the Alpine, just missing out on that point ahead of Daniel Lindblom and Dan Tomlinson, with Max Farrell finishing 5 laps down and Seddon Tutt unfortunately having to retire. Then on to our GT3s. Johnny Ashley will take their 2nd win and 3rd podium of the series, which will likely could possibly see them top of the championships. Trinket Tass, as we've seen, they're taking 2nd place on the final lap, away from Leon Vesparas, who would just hold on to the final podium place ahead of Matthias Fuskin. Athel Basker will take P5 ahead of Tom Watson, and Simon Harris P7, Tim Bob P8, Ben Myatt getting into P9. Good for them to get some points, having qualified in P13 in the class, so good race from them. And Frank Vivek will take the final point in the GT3 class. Jared Page just missing out in P11 ahead of Paul O'Grady, Dean Smith, Darren Wilkes and Mark Bryson in 15th, with Ollie Knowles losing their tyre with the crash at Paratella and not being able to get to pit lane, thus unfortunately retiring.
Indeed, nearly. We were 10 seconds away or whatever from getting that done before the server closed, but great job there anyway. Let me see if we can get the standings on the screen as well. As I said, there is a championship going on in the background, and as you said as well, only the top 10 get the points, so it's crucial to get inside that top 10 in the race. And I don't think SimGrid's updated, so we'll have to maybe do that next time instead. I have got the pre-race standings. If you want to look at those, maybe that'll give us some insight. Let's put them on the screen. There we go. Alfie Bevan leading the way, obviously, in the hypercar category there, obviously using both their drop rounds already on some poor results, so I can't imagine they've got those spare. Elvin Blomqvist, great result tonight. Obviously, we'll definitely be moving up, I'm sure. Currently resides in 2nd with Son. Sitting in 3rd, Nick Manders 4th. A bit of a way off the rest of the pack there, but Nick Manders obviously, again, another poor result tonight, so we'll see if he is able to stay within the top 5 as well. And Tyler Hammer, a point behind Nick Manders before the race. Also, I'd imagine moving on up. James Cowley, Johnny Ashley lead the way in the GT3 category, but again, with tonight's result, I can't imagine Johnny Ashley staying 2nd for long. Matt Webb, Alistair Ramsey, I don't think they were racing tonight, but Tricky to Task certainly was, and with a great result tonight, will again, I'd imagine, be moving up.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out those championship standings do not include our reserve drivers, such as Ben Shawley, who's made every round so far, despite being a reserve, except tonight. They're not scoring points as they are reserve drivers. That's why you don't see them up there. Just to clear that up, they're not taking. It's not like they're taking points away from the full-time drivers. They are scored separately, so that can change up the championship a little bit to what you're expecting. So yeah, but. Yeah, quite the lead for James Cowley coming into this race. Johnny Ashley will definitely have closed it down. And another thing worth noting, there are 2 dropped rounds, which is already applied to these standings. So that does just make things a little bit more confusing. But yeah, that's what we have to work with. Next time out. we are heading to we're heading overseas to Japan for the wonderful Fuji, and it will not just be the normal layout of Fuji. We are running the classic layout without the chicane at the end of the middle sector. Instead, it will be a fast right-hander. Very interesting. Interested to see how that will play out. I haven't done a race on that layout just yet. So how it will fare, especially between the GT3s and the hypercars, I think will be quite interesting.
Certainly, that is one I'm also looking forward to. A different circuit, really, so what we've kind of encountered throughout the series. Maybe Monza's maybe the closest one comparable to it, but we'll have to wait and see. Another fast track, though, and would definitely be an interesting one. And I think one maybe that a lot of the drivers will mix things up a bit with, with Monza and Imola and some of the other circuits. I'm sure they'd have practiced them and raced them before an ACC or iRacing or something. Fuji, it's going to be a new one for a lot of these drivers. And again, we'll just, I think, mix things up a bit as well. And I wonder what strategy we will see. So definitely tune in for that next week.
Well, with the long start-finish straight, you'd have to imagine it's going to drink that fuel. I assume we're going to see more pit stops. And the final sector, you mentioned ACC sort of experience for drivers. Of course, with Le Mans Ultimate, you can't lean on the assists too much. We've seen a few drivers struggling for traction, going for a little spin out of Tosa. The final sector is another tricky sequence of corners, trying to put the power down, especially the final corner at Fuji. We could see some more mistakes there, breaking into T1 as well, that long straight into the very tight right-hand hairpin. Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to say the least.
Yep, definitely. I agree. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for everyone in chat. I'm not sure if we had a follow. No, we just had Dave John Gibson doing us. Welcome. Thank you for joining us as well. Thank you for racing with us. We have got a lot of other racing on this week, more than just LMU. It's all on the schedule, but other sims as well. iRacing, ACC.
Do you want
I
me
think
to annoy you slightly?
Go on.
SimGrid's updated.
Oh dear. Well, it's too late now. But let's have a little look ourselves. Anything interesting, Scotty, on there?
Well, Alvin Blomqvist now leads the way in the hypercars. Currently 15 points ahead of Alfie Bevan. Son Angel in third. Tyler Hammer indeed getting up into P4. And Dave Wood slotting into P5 ahead of Nick Manders as well. On the GT3 fields, James Cowley with 3 wins so far. Still leads ahead of Johnny Ash. Those two drivers have taken all 5 of the wins across the series so far. So with the 2 drop rounds at play, James Cowley has missed 2 rounds. Johnny Ashley had a couple of, you could say, poor results compared to his current form. That could be a very interesting fight for the championship. Drink to Tass is in third with Matt Webb fourth, just 1 point ahead of Leon Vesparas is your top 5 in the GT3s.
Oh, so it's all mixing up already, and obviously plenty of races to go. And there is actually a double points round for the final round at Le Mans, so there's plenty of opportunity for that to change all the way to the end for some great racing. Actually, not to bog on the topic too long, but 90 minutes again, more options for strategy. Certainly, the drivers will have to stop, but there will be a case of, I think, of fuel saving. As hard as it might be at Le Mans, I guess you want to conserve your stop and make it as short as possible to get back on the circuit. But we'll see. What do I know? I'm not racing in LMU this series, so we'll leave that up to the drivers.
We sure will. See what they do, see what strategies they cook up. But hopefully they'll be cooking up a race as interesting as what we've seen at the end of tonight.
Indeed. But yeah, as I said, there are plenty of other racing going on this week. Check out the schedule on Twitch. Join us on Discord if you aren't already. There is a link in chat, I'm sure. But again, just thank you for tonight. And yeah, we'll catch you all some other time.